I am going to read Friend on Freedom River today by Gloria Whelan, and I would use this book with fifth graders in their Civil War study, letting them talking about the Underground Railroad and how it was started by Harriet Tubman and just kind of the specifics of that. And then I would also ask a couple of kind of thinking questions for them before they hear the story about just, is it always easy to do the right thing? And is it always easy to stand up for what they believe in? Because that's some of the things that kind of go throughout this story. And then I would begin reading the story to them. I won't read every page just because of the time, but I will read enough so that you would understand. So, Lewis watched the last of the mallard ducks lift off. Soon it would seal the Detroit River. He turned over the fishing boat to protect it from the snows. It was what his father had always done. His father had gone north for the winter to work in the logging camps. Before his father left, he told Lewis, "Son, you'll be in charge of the farm. If you don't know what to do, just do what you think I would have done." There was a rustle in the alder bushes, and Lewis thought it must be a deer or a fox. A voice whispered, "Are you a friend?" Lewis was so startled that he dropped the boat because those words meant only one thing: runaway slaves. He answered with the words his father had always taught him long ago, words that were a sign to the slaves that they had found friends. "What do you seek?" "Freedom," they said. "Have you got faith?" "I have hope." A black woman wrapped in a tattered shawl stepped from the bushes. A small girl clung to her, and standing apart was a boy about Lewis's age, 12 or 13 years old. "God bless you," the woman said. "My name is Sarah, my girl is Lucy, and my boy is Tyler. They told us at the Baptist church in Detroit that your daddy would help us. The slave catchers from Kentucky are on our trail like bloodhounds. We have got to hurry across this river to Canada, where a slave is free forever." Lewis knew his mother would be upset. She had been begging his father to not take the slaves across the river, warning him the new fugitive slave law means jail for anyone helping slaves escape. Over and over his father had taken the chance, asking, "How can I see some soul be sent back to slavery?" "My father isn't here," Lewis said to them. "There's ice on the river and the wind is strong, and it's a 3-hour pull." "No water is too cold and no wind is too strong for us, child," Sarah said. "We've already crossed 2 rivers, but the Detroit River is Freedom's river. It's our last chance. Our master has sold away these children's daddy, and they were going to sell away Tyler too, like he was a horse or a cow. If you don't take us, we might as well jump in and drown ourselves." The boy was scowling at Lewis. "I bet I could row that boat across the river." The boy's challenge stung at Lewis. "No, you couldn't," Lewis said. "You've got to know the currents and the shoals." The woman was shivering and the little girl was crying without making a sound, and Lewis thought she had to learn how to cry so that no one would hear her. Lewis knew what his father would do. "Wait here," he said, "and I would ask the children, what do you think he's getting ready to do?" The heat from the farmhouse wrapped around him as he walked in, and he could smell the white fish stew that was cooking. "Supper's nearly ready, Lewis," his mother said. "I'll be done with the boat in a minute, Mama. I just need to get a scarf." In the cubby hole that was his bedroom, Lewis opened the window and threw out the quilt from his bed, along with a sweater and a jacket. Then he returned to the kitchen. And at the door, he waved to his mother, saying, "Don't worry, Mama, if it takes me a while. Darkness is just daylight turned inside out." She smiled at him. "That's just what your father always says." Lewis gave the clothes and the quilt and the chocolate bread he had taken from the kitchen to the woman and her children. The boy looked like he was not going to put on the jacket, but then he did. "Don't mind my boy, he is stubborn," Sarah said. "I tell him there are good white people. Plenty of them have helped us along our way." Together the boys pushed the skiff into the water, breaking the thin skin of ice. They held the boat steady so that Lucy and Sarah could climb in. "Are you sure you can row a boat?" Lewis asked. "I'm sure. I've rowed the boat for Master Harmon when we went catfishing. I rowed him all over Mud Lake." Lewis asked them how they got there. "We've used the Ohio River and have come station to station on the Underground Railway," Sarah said. "There have been kind folks that have taken us in hungry and sent us off full." The boat shuddered as it plowed through the ice. In the daytime, Lewis had the gulls and other fishermen to keep him company. But in the winter, it seemed to Lewis that the four of them were the only people left on earth. His teeth were chattering, his fingers were numb, and Sarah held Lucy close to protect her from the wind. The light from the farmhouse had long since disappeared, but another light was now on the river. It was the lantern of a patrol boat. Lewis felt as if he had swallowed a piece of ice. If they were discovered, Lewis would be sent to jail. Sarah and her children would be sent back to slavery. "Stop rowing," Lewis whispered. "We've got to be quiet." As soon as they stopped, their boat began drifting away from Canada. The voices of the men came across the water as the patrol boat went by. The wake from the boat splashed against the skiff, but the boat's lantern didn't catch them. And we talk about what a close call that was with the children. When the patrol boat was out of hearing, the boys began to row again. Tyler was as worried as Lewis, and to break the silence, he asked, "What kind of fish do you catch in this river?" "Whitefish, herring, perch, sturgeon. My papa caught a sturgeon that weighed 80 pounds once." "That's a big fish. You've got to be strong to catch that. You got to be smart to catch catfish, though. The best thing is just to put on a heavy sinker and let the crawlers bump along the bottom of the lake," Tyler said. The wind was against them and the ice was thickening, and for every foot they gained, they seemed to sink back yet another. He had never been so cold. Lewis wished that he could ask his papa if he had done the right thing by risking all of their lives. Sarah and her children began to sing a song called "Keep Me From Sinking Down," and after a few minutes, Lewis joined in too. They all saw the light at the same time. "Is that another patrol boat?" Tyler whispered. But the light stayed still. "That's Canada," Lewis shouted. He and Tyler pulled on the oars. They jumped out and dragged the skiff to the shore. They pounded on the door of a nearby farmhouse, and they held their breath. What if they were turned away? A startled man and woman hurried them in, and after everyone was warm and fed, they urged Lewis to stay. "You can't go back tonight," the man said. "I have to. Mama will know the boat's gone, and if I don't come back, she will think I drowned for sure." Sarah threw her arms around Lewis. Lucy hugged his leg, and the two boys shook hands. "I'll come over this summer, and we'll get us a sturgeon," Lewis promised. Then Lewis left them to their new freedom. The wind was cold and it stung his face, and over he had to break the ice as he paddled. The boat was lighter now, which made it easier to row, but it was also easier to be afraid when you were alone. And Lewis wished that Tyler was with him. He started to sing the song, "Keep Me From Sinking Down," to keep him company. And on the distant shore, a light broke into the darkness. This time it was his name that came across the wind to him, and he dug in the oars into the water, pushing aside the ice. His mother was waiting on the shore. Her arms went around him, and he told her about Sarah and Lucy and Tyler. "When Papa comes back," Lewis said, "I'm going to tell him, 'Papa, I did what I thought you would do.'" And that was Friend on Freedom River. And then we talk about at the end of the story, did he end up doing the right thing? Was it an easy decision for him to make? Kind of when we started out the questioning at the beginning. And what they think his father would, if his father would be proud of him or not when they came back. And I always like to ask the kids when I read this to them, do they think that Lewis actually went over in the summer to catch a fish with Tyler? And we all like to think that he would. This is a great book, like I said, for teaching with the Underground Railroad, and it gives it a different perspective. And the students tend to like this story and they get into it, especially when they almost get caught.